Welcome back. Recent news reports worldwide say international experts are warning against the increased manufacturing and consumption of ultra-processed foods. And so we're asking a nutritionist and the acting vice dean of the College of Health Sciences, UTEC, Dr. Vanessa White-Borrow, are ultra-processed foods a health risk? Doc, I know what you're going to say already, man. Come on.
Yes,
but I mean, for this interview's purpose, just say it. Are they health risks? Yeah?
Yes, they are a health risk, and the data is coming out more and more. I know the hype since last week, especially because of the information coming out of the Lancet, a very widely well-known, scientific journal that's quite reputable, and they produced a series of articles that, pretty much provided strong evidence that shows that ultra-processed foods are driving several of these chronic non-communicable diseases that we're experiencing. And of course, those of us on the ground, we know this because over the years, we've seen it in our clients, we've seen it in our family members when they make changes to their diet. You see the change coming out, moving from the ultra-processed foods to the minimally processed foods and even the unprocessed foods. You're seeing where persons, they're losing the weight, their quality of life is so much better. Those persons who make the change because of the diseases that they've already started to experience, they're seeing that their recovery is actually happening.
Yeah.
And even many of them will tell you that the medications that they had to be taken a lot of, when they made a change in their diet, they actually saw where, their clinicians reduced the dosage.
Or they took them off of it completely.
Some of them actually could come off because they made a change in just the dietary choices, just eliminating many of these processed foods, especially the ultra-processed foods that have these preservatives and other ingredients, they emulsify.
Which is what I wanted to ask you about, because for the term ultra processed food, because we know processing in food it has to happen. You can't avoid it. But ultra processed foods, they're categorized as what?
All right. So depending on the classification, there are foods that are made in factories, pretty much largely mass produced, that have a lot of non-natural ingredients. So they've been stripped of, the ingredients that you would know coming out of natural foods, like your sugars, your fats. And these have been, in many instances, replaced by preservatives, these flavor enhancers.
And some names that we can't even pronounce.
Not to mention that. But, the low-calorie sweeteners for those who you want to market many of these ultra-processed foods as being healthy. So you put labels and claims on them that suggest that they're low in fat, they're low in sugars, but they're still very tasty. And they're cheaper, of course, and, the shelf life is long. So this is one of the ways you know them. You see these pastries, they're on the shelf for months. And there's no mold, they're not breaking down, and you're wondering what's going on. It's these ingredients that they've added to these foods that make them stay on the shelf longer. But of course, they're mass produced, they're widely available, and that's one of the conclusions that the publishers, they drew from those series of articles that, our natural diet has really been replaced by these ultra-processed foods. And yes, in Jamaica, we haven't really seen the data, but we see it on the shelf. We see it all around us. I mean, we've been growing up and we become accustomed to natural foods going bad. And now we're seeing where these foods, they're on the shelves for months.
They're on the shelf for months. And
nothing is happening.
I wanted to also ask you though, but because when you have a case study like Lancet or a Lancet publication that's talking about all these studies that have been done, and we've had this discussion about ultra-processed foods. From I was a little girl, I've been hearing this, don't eat the stuff because, the things that you can't pronounce, don't eat it. But from a policy level, in terms of our manufacturers, even locally, I don't know if we have been making any step towards saying, let's cut down. If you're going to be doing this kind of thing, put it on the front of the package. And this is an ultra-processed, food item that contains things in it. You don't see that kind of label warning either from a policy level. There's nothing that stands, I believe, for persons to actually know what it is that they're eating.
No. there isn't that labeling standard either that says, consumers need to know this, so you need to put it on the label. So what many of us have been advocating for, we've done the research, we know that based on what happens in other countries, if you use front of package warning labels in particular, and we've done the research that shows that it allows persons to recognize that these foods are high in these critical nutrients that increase our risk for developing chronic diseases like sodium and fats, different fats, especially saturated and trans fats, and even the sugars, the added sugars. These labels, they do help you to recognize these foods because the naturally produced foods, they don't carry labels. There's no need for them. So those persons who have health concerns, they can always use these labels to guide them in their food selection. So maybe they're not going to eliminate them from their diet overnight, but they can use the information without trying to work out what percentage of the daily value I'm consuming. That math is not necessary with front of package warning labels because some of them do have the numbers. But with the warning labels that we've been advocating for, you don't need that numerical information for the mathematically challenged people. So, and in some countries too, ultra-processed foods do carry signs, like star systems or ticks that show that, you have these harmful ingredients. And so, or they don't have it. So you can make your food choices. Again, we haven't got to that point where we've done the research to advocate for that, but those would help us as consumers to make the food choices, to recognize that this is an ultra-processed food and I need to, have less of it or even avoid it altogether.
Yeah. Give us a choice in the matter.
Quality of melody.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. I want you to just pinpoint for us and just make it very clear about the associated health risks that we've seen that are connected to the ultra-processed foods that we have been having.
Right. So these ultra-processed foods, the preservatives and emulsifiers, what they actually do when you consume them frequently is, for some of them, they cause you to overeat because they alter your taste perception. You don't recognize when you're actually satiated, mean you're full. So you continue having the desire to want to eat more.
Which leads to obesity.
Right. Exactly. So that will lead to overweight, obesity. And with overweight and obesity, it also drives us to, developing related conditions like heart disease and stroke, high blood pressure, especially in the case of these foods that are high in salt, sodium. So
there are many. There are
so many. Not to mention the cancers.
Well, I'm sure many persons following this interview would want to maybe get in touch with you or your team members there. Do you have a platform or an email address that people could actually reach out to you?
Sure, they can reach out through vanowhite@gmail.com, vowhite@utech.edu.jm. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, but the truth is, it probably does need updated.
Well, we're gonna connect with you where you are. Yeah. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate this conversation. Nutritionist and the acting Vice Dean of the College of Health Sciences, UTech, Dr. Vanessa White-Borough. More on Smile after this amazing music break.